our speaker. But before that, I would like to introduce the moderator for tonight's session. Ashley Tan is our gatekeeper. He's also a partner of Boston Consulting Group. And in the course of his professional work, he's also been very much involved in the Singapore Green Plan and very much passionate about this whole topic on climate change, environment, and plastics and so forth. So I will now hand you over to Ashley, the moderator for this session, and he will also set out the rules for how you can ask a question and post your questions and so forth, and all the rules of this webinar. Over to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Georgie. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you again for joining us this evening on a critical issue of our times, on climate change and plastic pollution in the biblical context of creation care. I'm Ashley. I help oversee the sustainability topic at BCG. And as you can see, this is my favorite green shirt because this is a topic which is very close to my heart. Now, before we introduce Tommy, just some additional context to add on to what Georgie shared. You know, friends, secularly, every day we hear words like carbon neutral, net zero, ESG, climate finance. Our news tells you how serious this topic is. Our government is talking about it. Your companies are telling you what they're doing about it. So very much top of mind and hearts. But there is the risk of getting desensitized by the sheer amount of rhetoric, the risk of also thinking that this is something that we can be hands-off on because enough people are doing something about it, or in fact to think, where do I start? So amidst all this noise and information overload, there's also the big risk of forgetting the fundamental and foundational biblical perspective of sustainability and ESG, of creation care, and of stewardship. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Tommy. Tommy is the founder of Green Hope, a green tech company which amongst its many innovations has pioneered biodegradable cassava-based green plastic. He's the former owner of handwoven furniture and fashion brands. He's worked in Indonesia's top conglomerates and was previously with BCG as well. After spending 10 years in US and Europe, Tommy chose to go back home to contribute to Indonesia. He is passionate about building communities of entrepreneurs and business leaders to solve the world's most pressing issues. He was also recently featured in Hong Kong Tat as one of the most influential individuals influencing the future of Asia. On the personal side, Tommy enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 homeschooled daughters. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to Tommy. Tommy, please.
Ashley, thank you so much for the generous introduction there. And then I would like to thank you for the Gatekeepers Singapore for inviting me to share a story of my personal faith too, in a way, and then our journey so far. And thank you for all your time to be here in the middle of the evening, middle of the week here. And I think let me just go right at it. Ashley said something that is very good, which is, yeah, we can be desensitized because of all these talk every day. And sometimes the talk with the actual actionable options that are available doesn't seem to correlate. So today, what I would like to share is really about coming back to who we are and our identity that actually informs in terms of why this issue can be one of the most, the biggest challenges our generation and our children's and children's generation are facing, and therefore the biggest opportunity as well. And then at the end of it, just a little bit sharing about a green hope. This topic, a little bit less in ASEAN, but even becoming more confusing in Western country. A lot of times I remember when I was speaking in the US, I was in Aspen and then speaking with many different people, but it becomes obvious that green topics becomes very sectarian or partisan topic. You need to be part of a certain political parties to be able to talk green, or you're probably not from the other political party, or even becomes religious sensitive issues. You can't be part of this religion if you talk about this green, because we don't care about that. We care about heaven, not about the present earth, you know. That is actually a bit confusing for me personally as well. So when we started Green Hope about 5 years ago, we really went to the theology underpinning of what we are about to embark to. I read through many books from the different faiths, of course, studied the Bible inside and out, And throughout the journey, I becoming more and more convinced that this is one of the exciting place where we can really contribute as children of God. So today I'm going to talk about three things. One is really the why. I begin by fixing my own understanding of what is my redeemed purpose in this short earthly life, how my faith needs to be more holistic. And then I'm going to share a little bit about the what. How bad is this problem? How real and why they are real, and what are the various opportunities to make a difference? And then the third, a little bit about case study on fighting plastic waste pollution as Green Hope journey itself. And then definitely look forward to the discussion more than anything with you all. So if we look back to the Bible, even from the Genesis, before we all, humankind fell into sins, right? We call it the original mandate, when God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden. I don't know if you all notice it, but it's really about to work it and take care of it. Oftentimes we're so excited, yeah, work, let's develop it, let's create many different products and exciting and services out of it, but we forgot to take care of it. And taking care is more troublesome sometimes, and sometimes make the work less efficient and all this stuff, because we need to give the land rest, or we need to take care of it. So that is part of the challenge. We forgot about the original mandate. Another thing that is very clear is that this planet, everything that is created, we're supposed to be the stewards, right? We are never owners. We're never created as owners to start with. We're supposed to be the managers. And that is actually one of the most liberating part of our reality of faith. Because having a stewardship mentality with our business, with our planet, with our family, liberates us, shelter us from pride. If everything we touch turns into gold, we're sheltered from pride because Christ does it for us. It belongs to him. And it also shelters us from despair. We know, I think even the generation of my dads, uncles, or grandfather, how the identity of what we do so intertwined with how we value ourselves. So when the business failed, despair crept in, disease, sickness, even to some extreme cases, deaths. Being a steward and having that mentality really put us in a healthy responsibility and healthy way and freeing way to take more risk, to take more measured risk on it, because we know that it's about God's agenda and that God is in charge. So even before the sin came to it, work has been very much part of it, and taking care of our planet, taking care of the garden has been very much part of it. Before even the Great Commission, because Great Commission necessitates separation from God. But this is the original reason of our creation. So naturally, if we look further, that God is really in the business of repentance once sins enter the picture, he's in the business of redemption, to redeem it, and reconciliation and restoration. To really see this very holistic view and complete view really excites me when I discover this, because what that means is that my faith, what I do, not only with my heart, but also with my hands, with my mind, everything matters to God. Not only on Sunday, but during weekdays matters. Not only on spiritual realities, but physical realities also matters. Because if you see in 2 Corinthians 5:17-21, it's clearly stated we're in the business of reconciliation, as God is in the business of reconciliation. It is a very thorough reconciliation. In the Colossians 1:15-20, we are very clear. There's not an inch of an area that doesn't start with Christ and belongs to Christ. So what that means is that once we understand that, once we are redeemed, now begin the work of redeeming the individual's relationship with God, with each other, and with creation. That really demonstrates his glory, love, and original beautiful design. Of course, you can take this wherever, but I just want to focus on the most important things here. So in essence, when we talk about his creation, He wants us to develop and steward it such that really reflect and glorify him. He doesn't want us to be a park ranger, which does nothing, doesn't add, like just guarding it, but not developing it, not manipulating the environment. Definitely not like that. Leave it as nature, just protect it and don't do anything with it. He doesn't want us to be exploiter. He let you exploit it until the last trees fall down, right? No, God wants to be, this is probably a suitable picture for all of you, our brothers and sisters in Singapore, just to illustrate a little bit, to be a beautiful garden, that the integration, the handprints of his stewards is clearly seen, but the harmony is clearly thoroughly felt. That is a beautiful thing, because you can see that somebody works this, right? But somebody else also created the nature, but somebody also worked with that nature. So that is the kind of development, the kind of balance, the kind of harmony that God wants. And it is actually so much built into who we are. So even if we look into various cultures of the world, as we know, right, God leaves his signs of truth in many different cultures and beliefs. And I want to highlight, for example, this is from my brothers and sisters in Bali, in Indonesia. This life philosophy, Three Hita Karana, means that the three causes of prosperity. So how, one may ask, the causes of prosperity? This is a shalom prosperity, a holistic. We start with harmony with God, which is, in general, people talk about it all the time. People go to a different house of worships and everything. And then harmony with each other's. People talk about it. People have communities. People have Zoom parties, even during COVID. But people often forget with modernity, sometimes we are detached with harmony with nature. Back then, we have to adhere with the natural cycles. When things get dark, we need to slow down and everything. But now with the inventions of lights, with the invention of electricity and everything, we conquer nature. But in the process, we lose sight of natural clocks. In the process, we lose sight with the natural rhythm of our own body. In the process, we basically hurting ourselves. So that is actually why this holistic thinking of harmony, that we can truly have a shalom, it's built inside us. That is very important and revealing, I thought. So not only it's mandated to us, it's actually good for us. That is often the case, right, with God. Whatever he gives to us, actually, if we do it the right way, if we think about it the right way, it's actually good for us. Now I'll share with you at least 4 points. Some of you will find out more why sustainability is then important as an opportunity for us as believers. First of all, it really is a generational, massive opportunities for God's people to contribute. It's a systemic issues related to all aspects of life, affecting all people, no exceptions. Climate change and the destruction is very democratic. Everything from US to China to Europe to Pacific Islands to Bangladesh to Australia to Indonesia, everybody got the impact. Plastic waste pollution is the same way. So this actually presents an opportunity to really have solidarity in humanity and reach out to people of different faiths, demonstrating God's love, justice, and mercy in the midst of this. It's a very challenging problem to solve that requires nothing less than collaboration across the aisles. Literally, everybody, every single country, government, company, institution, NGO, fellowship will be too small. This will force us to learn in a solidarity of humanity. This is a chance to prove, is our theology sufficient? Does God care about this? Does God have the wherewithals and ability to equip his people to be part of the loving channel and justice channel for this? It's also, what's interesting here, a little bit on the demand side here, with the climate change and plastic waste pollution, there's a proven and massive demand side because people are already consuming and producing for decades. This is actually a massive opportunity for God's people to contribute. Unlike sometimes some of the digital tech space where we really need to subsidize or buy the market, so to speak, burn the cash to really prove at what market clearing price that the business is actually viable. Green business is all about the consumption is there. We just need to prove it that we can have a better performing, better behaving materials or better source of electricity, but people already consuming, the demand is proven. We just need to make a better product. That's actually very exciting. With technology, there's a lot new boundaries that haven't been accessible before, suddenly made accessible and viable. Because at the end of the day, when we set up Green Hope, we set it up as a social enterprise. What that means is it needs to directly solve environmental and social issues, and it needs to solve it in a scalable, profitable manner. So we don't depend on CSR budgets. We don't depend on government budget. So what that means is that with these big, massive problems, there's an opportunity for true big value creation. Because business is about solving problems. The bigger the problem is, the bigger the value creations. Profit is a function of value capture out of that value creation. So it's one of the most exciting value creation opportunities. Now, this is another thing that will be interesting. This is based on the WEF Global Risk Report this year. And if you can see here, there's the bus is really leaving the station, the whole world deciding, starting with the millennials, pressuring the governments and brands, pressuring the value chain actors, and then the investors are all moving in now with the ESG. If you see here the global risk report, right, there's the impact and there's the likelihood. And if you see all the way, of course, the big impact and big likelihood here, you see a lot of green. Climate action failure, biodiversity loss, human environmental damages, extreme weather, natural resource crisis. These are the biggest risks haunting any business. So what that means is that, and the millennials know it, you know, okay, yeah, you older people are not stewarding the planet. We're going to be the ones who need to live with your policy and the way you consume and everything. So the millennials are really getting impatient for the right reasons. And of course, they also need to do a whole lot of their part too. But we all need to work together. It's a very serious thing, and it's very serious opportunities. So the shift is real and now. It's not 5 years ago. It's not 5 years from now. The young consumers are fighting for their future planet. They are voting with their wallet. The governments are realizing the true cost of inaction. A beach in Bali got inundated with plastic from the ocean every month, suddenly every 2 weeks, suddenly every 3 days. The livelihood of the people will collapse for sure. So that's why the government are taking real action, and this provide a real opportunities to work, all of us to work together. Systemic issues also require effective collaboration between private sectors, governments, and NGOs. Being a servant leaders, being people who bring less ego, more eco, I love to share that quote. I did not invent that, I'll borrow it from my friends, architect friends from Italy, is really about building bridges. Our faiths should be on the forefront of being a servant leader, of building bridges, of being sacrificial. Because a lot of times in collaborations like this, you really need to swallow your ego, you really need to respect others, you really need to learn humbly with others. This is actually a very exciting space for us. And if we talk about ASEAN countries, there's a whole lot more similarities between countries in ASEAN in terms of climate, cultural affinity, habits, economic profile, and so forth, so that we can have a lot of the solutions, regional solutions that is going on here. And that is probably one of the exciting stuff that probably people in Gatekeepers can facilitate a more regional discussion and conversation where we can learn from each other. So those are, I hope it really excites you to see that there's a real opportunities. Now let's learn about the problem itself, how serious it is. And I guess we know it's serious enough, yeah, but let me flip through here a little bit quicker here. Some of the basic data, as you can see here on the left-hand side, carbon dioxide and global temperature is really in a lockstep. And if you start paying attention, it starts to go in the era of industrial 1950s. Yeah, you can debate about the causality, but the correlation is unmistaken. They walk hand in hand together. And if you start looking into the number and type of national disasters on the right-hand side here, same story, 1950s, you start to have these climate-related hydrometeorologic disasters, really bad. That actually causing hundreds of billions of damages, not to mention lives. So the earth is already feels hotter, but saving the environment is actually saving humanity. Caring for the environment is actually loving your neighbor. So that is very important point. Scientifically and experientially, very hard to dispute. Sea level rise, Jakarta is sinking. 3 times as many people exposed to extreme heat, cost of lost productivity due to a hotter world, decline in crop yields. Sorry, I try to not be depressing when discussing this, but this is what it is. And I hope our God-given mind and heart can really see this as an opportunity to overcome. So I hope you don't despair, but in fact, find a bigger purpose. Now, climate change, as an experience is beyond concepts. In the scientific communities, that the 97% of scientific communities that already agree, we are already entering a building resilience stage in the communities. In other words, we're talking about how to live with these climate changes, how to live in the middle of the planet that looks like this. We're no longer talking about whether it's real or not and everything. How can we deny it? It's just already happening right in front of us. Right? So now we are about building resilience stage. And I hope more and more believers can be working, building bridges across faiths, building bridges with many different people to really be a sign of God's love. And we don't have planet B, so to speak. Yeah, the billionaires are trying to go to space, but they're probably going to be limited seats in terms of who they can take, right? But with the right perspective, attitude, and hope, we can turn this into an opportunity to contribute. Because as mentioned, it is really a growth opportunities. How to think about it is there's an incremental solution, but there's like a disruptive solutions immediately. One of my friends, for instance, are having a drone that can plant crazy number of trees every day, cheaply. So across the forest, they will just shoot these balls that has the seed and protected with the planting materials on already. Very sharp, boom, 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 boom. And they can easily plant 10,000, 100,000 trees in a very, very rapid fashion. That is only possible with technology. So that is an exciting stuff, exciting technology. 30% of the consumer, they say, based on latest research, already looking for sustainable packaging, sustainable brands when they make their buying decisions. 30% is more than enough to move the needle. They say any society will move towards whatever based on the 10% of the minority, radical minorities. 30% is more than enough to really get the economic scale. Just for fun here, I don't know if any of you have watched any of these movies, Cowspiracy and the Game Changers. A lot of innovation opportunity in green business because things are not always as it seems. Lots of myths to be broken. And lots of things needs to be synchronized. Here, let me just for fun a little bit here. I'm gonna put on a video. I don't know if you watch this Game Changer. They have it in Netflix. Yeah, you see there Arnold Schwarzenegger. Can you see it?
And only
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I ate a lot of meat. They showed us commercials.
Oh, steak. That's what a man eats.
Selling that idea that real men eat meat.
Serious non-food.
But you got to understand that's marketing. That's not based on reality.
I've been teaching fighting techniques to government agencies for more than 15 years. Then I got injured, unable to teach for at least 6 months. I spent more than 1,000 hours studying science on recovery and nutrition, and stumbled across a study about the Roman gladiators.
The gladiators were predominantly vegetarian.
How could the original professional fighters be so powerful, eating only plants?
And I made the switch to a plant-based diet. I qualified for my third Olympic team. I broke 2 American records. I was like, man, I should have done this a long while ago.
Plant-based, I wasn't sure if I was going to survive, and I actually became like a machine.
One of the biggest misconceptions in sports nutrition is that we have to have animal protein to perform at a high level. That's just not true.
Sometimes you have to do things that you know your competitors aren't doing.
Today's blood and yesterday's blood.
I think this is going to wake a lot of people up. I was recovering better, not getting as sore. This was our best season in the last 15 years, and we had 14 guys on plant-based diets.
We all want to feel great, have more energy. Cholesterol was 276. Today, 169.
Whoa, now you're talking.
Most guys my age can keep up with the grandchildren. My grandchildren can't keep up with me.
Right, I guess you get the idea, right? That's funny because that's a lot of myth, and that actually gave birth to one of the hottest sector, which is plant-based meat. I know Singapore is leading the forefront there. There's a lot, but how it ties to the one on the left is funny, because the one on the left is that movie about how this guy wants to tackle climate change, and he said that, look, I'm saving water, I go everywhere using bicycle and everything, but then I realized when I eat one beef burger, there goes all my water savings, all my bicycle and everything for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. Basically, these to produce this meat protein is really, really resource consuming. So this is the kind of example of myths to be broken and to make it sustainable and healthier at the same time. So am I advocating not to eat meat at all? I myself still love meat, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is climate-friendly diet equals balanced diet actually equals healthy diet. See, I'm trying to put the pictures here, like 3/4 of the picture is all about the vibrant colors, very good food, and only a quarter of the picture maybe some of the meaty and pale colors food, right? That's just food for thoughts, just a fun tips for you all. Another fun tips with climate-related issues. At the end of the day, God's technology is still the best. There's no way, and it's still unmatched, that trees is the best carbon drawdown mechanism available ever. Soil is another carbon storage that is very, very good. So where does that take us? Plant trees, plant trees, plant trees. Make more healthy soil, whatever it takes. So that happens to actually correlates with a healthier lifestyle for all of us too, right? So God's design is always the best design before we muck it around and turn it into a very messy industrial craziness. So quickly on the second problem. Second problem is equally big problem. Now this is two sides of the same coin, right? The upstream production is the same. Plastic comes from a byproduct of oil and gas. That is one of the biggest contributor for the GHG. So if you see this is a typical ocean. This is sadly is part of Indonesia, Nusa Penida area. So when this video got sent to the World Economic Forum, to many different places, it's America's our president. But the thing is, when you try to track that waste, it would have already moved to a new place. The whole planet share one ocean. So we need to solve this together in collaboration with everybody. That's under the water. And above the water, suddenly this is another video that shows how the birds suddenly dying in droves in Pacific Islands. No production, no populations. When they die in droves, these migratory birds, they open up the stomach, same stories. If under the water, you see all this floating films above the water, you can see all these birds dying because of all the pieces coming from our laptop cover, phone cover, pieces of our phone, pieces for our gadgets, buckets, toothbrushes, and everything.
Way up.
Oh, look at that.
So each bird
no
can
doubt
have.
this bird died as a result of that plastic.
These are all pieces of plastics.
Of plastic. It's quite alarming, isn't it?
Oh, it's awful.
range of plastic types and colors. We've got everything from the blues and the reds
So
to the
Stomach's just filled with it. Big pieces too.
big sharp
Heavy.
pieces.
When I saw this video, it kind of creeps me out because it feels like the end of times written in all our holy books. You see, all the animals dying, under the water and the sea and everything, and it's because of our consumption and production pattern that is absolutely not sustainable at all. And this, if a lot of the oxygen comes from the ocean, protein comes from the ocean. If life on the ocean dies, life on land will die. If life on the land dies, like these birds also dies, humans will be fighting for scraps, and we all will be dying as well. So it's an existential threat. But COVID increased unsustainable plastic consumption. You know, you and I, the problem is with all these e-commerce, right? All the buying of these items, you and I already eating a credit card's worth of plastic a week. So it's a matter of when this will, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when this will kill us. 3 credit cards, 5 credit cards. Already we go to the doctor, says, look, doctor, I have these symptoms. Doctor will say, you have autoimmune disease. You have hormonal imbalance. The question is, why do we have those things? It's because, of course, our lifestyle and the pollution, air pollution, plastic waste pollution entering our bodies. So we're stuck between the rock and a hard place here. It's a real, very useful material that moves the economy and prolong the usefulness of food and everything, but also at the same time, it's a planetary crisis, the waste, what to do. That is actually creating this problem. We're in the biggest transition from unsustainable plastics materials and lifestyle to sustainable mindset, lifestyle, and materials. Notice I didn't say only the materials, the mindset and the lifestyle needs to change with it. So it's one of the most exciting phase where there's a lot of value can be created, a lot of collaboration can help define a new histories. And for those who refuse to move, those who really holding on to the status quo, I think it's just unfortunate because these friends, we can ask them to really be part of the future as well. But at the same time, with 400 million tons of consumption every year as a society, that's 25 million containers. If you try to fit it into your imagination per year, 25 million containers. Only about 10% recycled because it's not, a lot of the plastics are not economical to be recycled. And about 10 million tons leaks to the ocean and to nature every year. So that is causing the problem. But there's no silver bullets. The world's recycling system is at a breaking point because the reverse logistics of the recycling is too expensive for the most items. Good for some items, but very tough for film items. Biodegradable, is it a solution? I would say we're from biodegradable technology. I would say yes and no also. We need to know, do we have the supporting conditions to make sure the technology works for that? The question is, does it have, under what conditions it will biodegrade? Because biodegradable in itself becomes a marketing term. Or we follow just the European style, just ban the entire single-use plastic items. Can work in some place, may not work in some of the low-income economy with the sprawling 17,000 islands like Indonesia. Or we can burn. Singapore, end-of-life situation for plastic and waste in general, incinerate and then put the ash into the landfill. It works, but it needs to be high-income country because burning in ASEAN situation and weather that is so humid is like boiling water. The economic is very, very challenging. So how to solve it then? We believe that waste management, it needs to be part of the solution. We need to reduce, reuse, recycle where it's economically viable to recycle, like PET bottles, milk jugs. But we also need to go into biodegradable for items that are too cheap, too dirty, not economically viable to recycle. That is actually Green Hope's solution. So just to close up this chapter and enter the final part, thank you for being with me so far. These are some of the triggering questions and some of the future-proof ideas. Clean energy measurements, electric vehicles, smart cities, trees planting. Oh, plenty of ideas for everybody here to really take a stab at it and be part of the solutions. Case study Green Hope. It's really, we want to convert the world's consumption and production to be sustainable through collaborations. We basically a global green tech social enterprise based in Indonesia. We develop our own bioresins and additives. And so our factory is the bioresins that we produce ourselves based on 10 years of research, 7 years of patent process in the US, Singapore, and Indonesia, currently exporting to more than 10 countries with more than 10 commercial applications. We are about co-creating. We have the upstream, we have the chip, if you will, of environmental friendly chip, but we need to work with many different finished product providers to create the truly sustainable finished products. We are certified, and our materials currently is going through most ASEAN countries and Central America even. And we work in a portfolio approach, targeting the trend of the planet, where the trend is really moving towards more bio-based. Just like the energy portfolio will be renewable, the meat will be plant-based, the plastic will be plant-based also, more into bio-based and biodegradable, as we have our 3 technologies, Oxium Eco Plus and Nature Loop. Moving with the renewable energy and plant-based trend, Green Hope is about understanding that there's no single crop alone can serve the worldwide bioplastic demand, because it will be unsustainable monoculture. So the question is, what is the regional advantage we have? That is the plant that is scalable, cannot be monopolized, high starch content but low nutritional value, can work with many farmers. And our answer, based on our 10 years of research, is tapioca cassava is one of the most viable crops to really work and become ASEAN's contributors to help solve the plastic waste problem. So this is what Green Hope has been working a lot, and working with many different partners. So tapioca and bioplastic base has significant less carbon footprint, less energy consumption, and less GHG emissions compared to standard plastic. We also have a positive social impact because we source from industry and farmer co-ops. When we source from farmer co-ops, we are Fair for Life certified, where we can pay them a little bit premium, turn it into bioresins in our factory. And we work with 40, 50 different factories around the world to really produce many different diverse finished product that waste is not negative to the environment, biodegradable and safe if accidentally eaten by animals, actually by human too, but I don't want to do marketing that way. So we are really excited. For instance, is this the trend? Yes. Even Japan, in the middle of COVID, they passed this roadmap, very discreet roadmap, very committed to really change 20% of their consumption into bioplastic by 2030. That alone means 2 million tons, which roughly $6 billion. And we quickly mapped into various of their agriculture mulch film, organic waste, garbage bags. So which one can use our technology B, which one technology C. It's very exciting here to do this with a lot of our Japanese friends and partners. And this is the vision also. This is the kind of things that what I mean by social enterprise. We are linked up through Green Hope Technologies. We can link up our Japanese friends' consumption. For instance, 30 billion bags a year, assuming 1% of shoppers use bags made of Eco Plus and Nature Loop, 300 million bags, we can affect 10,000 cassava farmers per year, 2,500 small businesses. This creates a virtuous cycle. This is the kind of stuff that gets my juice flowing, because yeah, I don't need to do CSR, make profit, exploitatively set aside 2% of net profit, pay some NGO to clean up and everything. The arithmetic, the money doesn't work that way. But if you have redemptive business model, regenerative business model, this is an example of it. And we're very excited that we are in the implementation mode of this. That is my co-founder, Sugi is the scientist, 10 years of research, 7 years of patent process. And both of us launched the company 5 years ago. We have many different certification and so forth, working with many different regional and some of the Western brands too. So together, it's all about together changing unsustainable consumption, one product category at a time. And these are our actual products, not concepts that we have done, or we are, as well as what we are doing right now. So just to close here, just remind us back again about how we need to have a full shalom in terms of our prosperity, which means we are reconciled with our God, we are reconciled with each other. And last bit is about we are reconciled with nature and in sync with it. Thank you so much for your time. You've been really good listening here. So let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tommy, for that very meaningful presentation on the what, the why, and the how. I think we move now into the Q&A session, where we really want to have a two-way discussion with our participants. We already have some questions which came in, and some questions specific to the economics of sustainable alternatives, some about the science around it, some are specific to your company, Green Hope, and some are about the theology behind the sustainability mandate. Maybe if we take one of the questions, which we combine Galvin's question as well as one of the other questions on the economics. Basically, Tommy, what do we see as the point at which where bioplastics or other sustainable alternatives can become mainstream? How can it become feasible for consumers to buy this? When is that break-even point? And what is that business case for it?
Yeah. The problem with our era of industrialization is we're really killing the planet, and we are not accounting for the damage and non-sustainability of the planet, right? Our P&L is very simplistic. It's all about how much money we can make. There's no social capital. There's no natural environmental capital built into it, right? So when our children's children run out of natural capital, then we'll be like, too bad, I already got it first. That is the problem. In reality, this unsustainable thing, what that means is that has got huge, massive negative externalities that needs to be built into it. So that's one. There's no such thing as cheap stuff. But right now it's really cheap because somebody's paying it from the future. That is the problem, right? So how to build the true inclusive economics, the true accounting is key. But anyway, let's be practical because we live in today. That is the fundamental principle. We need to get there. So all our accountant friends needs to help to calculate, to count properly, not only financial, but also natural and social capitals into the P&L. But look, oil and gas sometimes has subsidized as well. So how we do it is we need to scale, definitely. Sometimes it's a chicken and egg, but we can do it such that redesign the product. For instance, yeah, because it's so cheap, the shopping bag, I just use it once and throw it away. But if I make a nicer bioplastic bags and I educate that, look, you can fold it nicely, put it into your pocket, use it several times before it ends up being your garbage bag and throw it and it will biodegrade in a landfill. So we change the value proposition, not only the material, but also the behavior change associated with it. And you will be surprised, actually, people of the different economic strata, all the way to the down, to the lower economic strata, they're actually the one who suffers the most also. They get flooded all the time and everything. They know if we give them an opportunity, would you like to participate? Would you like to provide this? Everybody jump on board. So in Green Hope, we have 3 portfolio of technology. We have the additives that the price is almost parity with regular oil-based solutions, but it biodegrades because it's used the power of sun and the heat and the moistures that are widely available. That is awesome. That becomes our mass market product. But then we also have the bioplastics that I can tell you right away, so long that we are still addicted to oil-based power all the time, the bioplastic without help from the government to basically make the parity is very difficult, because oil-based polymer comes as a byproduct of oil and gas production. In the virgin state, is a residual feedstock. How can you beat residual feedstock, whereas our farmers need to plant and everything, right? That is the challenge against oil-based plastic. However, because government knows the damage done to their environment, to everything, they are actively changing the economics of the solution. So our bioplastic shopping bags, for instance, don't need to compete with single-use regular plastic anymore because it's banned already, the single-use plastic. Is the economics change because the government know the cost of letting this kind of unsustainable consumption as it is will destroy livelihood, will destroy environment, will destroy healthcare. Everything will be more expensive down the road. So that's why actually what I'm seeing is if we speak about this topic 5 years ago, I would say I'm still not sure where the governments will go. But the last 3 years, I've been overwhelmed with the amount of effort at World Economic Forum level, at United Nations level, at national and local government level, and at NGO level, at the millennials level. It's almost very politically incorrect to be unsustainable, you know? So that actually bodes well, because it's what we want, what we as society want and yearning for. So the future is bright. We are entering the economic parity time and viability time.
Thank you, Tommy. Fascinating. I think two things you mentioned, which is one, that we're actually nearly at parity with the sustainability and traditional versus traditional. And two is that it's actually going to be more expensive to continue down this path and do more damage to the environment. So I think that links quite nicely to a question from Chris Childress, which is, how do we measure, when we look at ROI, traditionally business people always focus on financial returns. How do you measure the return of social and human capital when you try to convince financial stakeholders, governments, who are traditionally looking at these traditional metrics?
Yeah, it is not easy, to be honest with you, and I'm still studying it. Right now, we're in the process to be a B Corp certified, for instance, where they have a more holistic thing. But the idea is, and I believe in this, it's just a matter of waiting for someone to be thoroughly articulating it, able to thoroughly articulate it. And I think in the past Gatekeepers event, the previous one, there's also a lot of professors in Oxford, I believe, and in many different places starting to really build a case based on evidence on the ground. How, if a company do the right level of profit while having the extra surplus be reinvested back in the community and in nature, how it's so much more sustainable, how it's so much more stable. Yeah, we don't like variance, right, in business, and we don't like risk up and down like this. So it's more stable, it's more sustainable. It's actually, there's a compelling business case. Right now, I believe they're still a bit separate. They treat ESG reports as one report. They treat P&L as purely profit. That's why I keep saying that, look, maybe the accountants friends, all our accountants friends, we save the world when they are able to define the new standards of GAAP, that, or whatever the new standards is, to really be able to incorporate that in the P&L. Then all the investors, the management consultants, and all the strategy recommendations will be more holistic, right? It's not going to be totally decentralized where it's subscale, but it's not going to be totally centralized where all the transport and it's going to be some place in the middle between locally, regionally sourced and mid-tier footprint. So that is an exciting area of a lot more new thinking. But I think we don't need to wait. We need to apply our businessman cap that, where there's a problem, let's create solutions for it, and we'll be well rewarded as well, even financially. And I see that trend right now. A lot of impact funds that are quite serious beyond just the following the trend, but of course there's always people who just follow the trend. But I think we're all in all moving on the right direction.
Good. Thanks, Tommy. Just to let the audience know, there's quite a number of questions, so please upvote to show which questions you would really like to be answered, and we can prioritize that in order. Maybe we move to a bit more of a theological question for now, Tommy, from both Tekla and Galvin, and maybe we combine both. So are there essentially elements in the environmental discourse that may not be compatible with our faith? And maybe linked to that, are there different types of theology within even the Christian community, and which are not compatible or which are contrasting?
Okay, let me put a really big disclaimer first. I'm not a theologian, so I'm just somebody who tried to be a good follower of Christ and try to do what Christ tells me to do. It's as simple as that at the end of it. But I do believe that the way we've been treating his creation is not reflective of the King who came and sacrificed for us. I think by caring for the environment, not for the sake of the environment itself, Because to be very honest with you, anything we do, right, is out of love. And this is where it gets challenging. Ashley, you're a partner in DCG, right? It's very results driven. And you then identify the drivers and you try to see the future, right? But sometimes as Christians, we really having hard time to see how the future will pans out. But right? And if we be honest with ourselves, it's very challenging future that we're about to face, because people are more cold, their hearts, people are more selfish, people are more short-term minded. This is real. This discussion is happening at even at many different forums level that usually try to put together multilateral. And they say that, look, the government's more selfish and individual and companies, everything. So the absence of values actually causing, without faith, we can see the future with gloom, basically. So, but what that means is what we do is really out of love, and we expect the best results, but we leave the results to God. But what we do know is there is an original design before humans really rooted in anything, in parents' relationship, husband and wife, everything, right? The devil that never creates. That's what the devil cannot do. The devil only corrupts. He corrupts everything, including how we coexist with the environment. So I think it's just a matter of bringing back, giving the glimpse so that people, whether believer or non-believer, can get glimpses. It's actually a great, beautiful design, Lord, as an intended. I want to know your God, because your God seems to create a very beautiful design originally. So to me, having these small wins here and there that can touch people in a real way, that's what matters. Yeah, we can talk about at system level and all that stuff, and we should continue to do that, but that's out of our hope, not necessarily the real can happen. Now, in terms of what are the stuff that cause challenge sometimes, I believe people talk about it, of course, the separation between spiritual and sacred, sacred and secular. They say that, look, environment, purely physical, secular, and everything. That's not helpful, because we are spiritually, we can enjoy nature and it becomes spiritual experience, right? It is really part of God, how God designs the whole thing. So when we separate it, secular, sacred, is really, we're hurting ourselves, we're hurting our neighbor, we're hurting the testimony of God. The second piece is really this fear. A lot of believers these days, because we feel like we're surrounded on anything, the lifestyle, the corruption on everything, corruption on sexuality or identity, everything, we're acting out of fear. And we think that, look, let's just hold on long enough until Christ comes the second time. Yeah, the planet also collapsing, nothing we can do. Let's just hold on. So this lifeboat mentality is really not helping, because I can't live like that, out of fear, close my window every day and just protecting my kids because everything will contaminate them. There's no way I can create such a protection for my children who are growing increasingly smarter than me in finding loopholes to protect them from the ways of the world. There's nothing. The only way I can do is really to show God has better designs on anything, on the planet, on relationship with each other, on your relationship with God. When you hold on to that better design, everything else grows dim and less interesting. Or you can help your friends to meet God that way. So that it's really coming back to the original design. I think we keep coming back to that theme, and that is so much better. The only way to survive our faith in this difficult time is really to be on the offensive. It's like what they say in football, right? Soccer. Best defense is the best offense.
Thank you, Tommy. Well, even though you're not a theologian, I think you handled that question rather incisively. Now, switching again to the other side of the aisle here, question specific to Green Hope. We've had a couple of people who are very curious about your model, about your plans. I'm going to try to combine them. I want to put you on the spot here and ask you 3 questions. First of all, do you have any plans for your next physical step outside of Indonesia? It's a question from one of our anonymous attendees. For example, will you be spreading to ASEAN? And how can one be involved with opportunities, say, even in Singapore before the end of the year? Second question, linked to your business. Are you actively going to be targeting e-commerce and logistic platforms? And finally, what are some of your types of clients, typical range of sizes of their orders, and how can folks connect with you to work with you on this, with you and your manufacturers?
Right. Thank you for all the questions there. We are right now operating, we are exporting to more than 10 countries. We are some of the countries, Vietnam, Central America, occasionally Singapore, and Malaysia, right now exploring Australia, but we're still small. We're still high growth. We are still looking for partners. We're still looking for financial partners. We're still looking for business partners to really want to be like-minded, like vision and like values, like operating values, that we want to do this together. It needs to be beyond transactional. As you see in this business, it's okay not to be greeny to start with. I wasn't a greeny to be honest, to be very honest with you, Ashley. I didn't really care about the plan before I started Green Hope. I was drawn to it because of the size of the problem. And I like to solve problems. I like to build businesses to solve problems. That's how I got into it. And the more I learn into it, and the more I'm drawn to it, and the more I feel like this is very meaningful. This is a very meaningful change we can do for our children's sake. So that is something that I'm drawn more and more into it. So it's okay if you didn't know too much into it, but you believe that the whole world is moving this direction. You really want to be part of the solutions and want to explore cooperation, collaboration. Happy to. I think the organizer will have my contact. We can explore further. We can discuss size of the orders depending on whether we're exporting the bioresins or we're exporting the finished products. It can be part of the container, but each container also, if we are exporting resins, can be, we can talk about 40,000 US. But when I export hair coloring to US, one container can be like 80,000. So it's really depending on the size of the type of the items. We export the bioresin, the upstream raw material, to some of the countries that already have their own manufacturing for finished product. But for developed countries like UK, generally we export the finished product itself, the shopping bags, the seedling bags, and so forth. So we are very flexible in our approach and in our footprints.
Oh, thanks, Tommy. And folks, you have it there. If you'd like to get in touch with Tommy, do have his contact details. So do feel free to drop him a note after this. Tommy, we have a very rather popular question from Benedict Salamo on the nature of your products. So he's asking, cassava bioplastic is impressive, but how do you overcome different types of other types of traditional plastic, given that your ubiquitous packaging is always going to be plastic, whether it's bottles or plastic bags? I think you might have answered this a bit earlier, the idea of parity. Purchasing parity, but he does have a second question about bioresin compared to HDPE resin, and the question he has is, how can you actually deploy the bioresin? Has it been already tested on different types of packaging machines?
Yeah. So I'm pretty fortunate. My co-founder, he's really research. He came from 40 years of plastic packaging, so his family business. So he went to the States, got education and scholarship and everything on plastic money from his family business. So he said that he wants to redeem his 40 years worth of sins. He always jokingly when we joined together, and I said, yeah, your sins is wow, quite big, yeah. And he also in the States, he worked a long time with 3M as part of the R&D engineer. So he really learned to research from the commercial adoption perspective. He always said about how only 3% of patents in the world actually making money, making a difference that it strives. The rest, 97%, just sitting on the shelf somewhere, just as a barrier moat and so forth. So we have 2 patents, and both are actually selling right now. Both are profitable, and both are actually scalable. So because he designed the solutions to be able to be used in regular machines. So no need new machineries. Yes, it will need some new it needs some configuration of the machine setups, but no need new machinery. So that actually massively removed the barrier to entry. Now, in terms of the adoption, we need to be, now this is a very important mindset in this space, sometimes it's lacking. I can characterize people maybe in many different businesses. A lot of people are insecure. They always feel like my product should be the best, and when they're insecure, they act like drug seller instead of a doctor. What that means is that my drug is the best, all the others are bad, and they are all greenwashing. And that actually confuses so many people who are well-intentioned, including government. And when they go to government, they tell half-truth. Yeah. For instance, can this be recycled? Is this recyclable? The government asks wrong question, right? Is this garbage bag recyclable? They say, yeah, it needs to be recycled. But in reality, yes, it can come from recycled resins, but there's no way you can economically recycle a garbage bag that is full of garbage already. So there's no way our waste picker will be unloading the garbage bags, washing the inside and outside, because recycling solution, you need to wash it first. Before you melt it, you chop it, and you create a recycled resin out of it. Sort it and everything. The whole thing can take $1, and it's only worth, the material only worth 5 cents on the other end. So who's gonna subsidize 95 cents? And is it circular economy to burn 95 cents of cash to save 5 cents worth of material? Now that's for recycling. However, recycling works well for PET bottles. All your drinking bottles and everything, mineral water, that's because PET, polyester, is one of the highest value plastic. You can turn it into yarn and becomes fast fashion that goes into all the branded fashions and so forth, right? So there's almost economic viability on recycling for PET bottles. But for garbage bags, for films and everything, biodegradable is the solutions. So knowing this, knowing your sweet spot, it's almost like surgical precisions. When you get adopted, then it will be sustainable in your adoption. So that is important point there. Instead of applying blanket, let's target everything. So in our business, we don't need to target bottles. People come to us all the time asking, hey, can you make my bottle biodegradable and stuff like that? Technically possible, but why? If you're able to recycle it already, we don't need to. So let's be a doctor who understand the underlying symptoms and prescribe the right solution rather than just drug seller. You have headache or you have whatever, COVID, it's the same medicine. There's no way, right? And that is part of the challenge in this space, to really clear that up.
I think that's great advice, Tommy, to also in general pick your battles and to be very targeted. We have a question, a very practical question from Lynette on how we have a bunch of companies globally, Fortune 1000 companies, and all their CEOs pledging net zero by 2050. But many of them won't be around in our jobs by that time. So what is your view on this, Tommy? I think it's the idea of continuity, it's the idea of ownership. What are your thoughts?
I'm debating to share my thoughts or not. Whether it will be misinterpreted or not, but I believe Gatekeepers is really a very frank, right? Community, very strong community, right?
It's Chatham House rules as well, yes.
I think it's challenging. I think it's very challenging, to be very honest with you. I think when we talk as if we want to save the planet, we want to save the world, but our inability to discuss from the values perspective, right, is limiting the society. We keep coming back to define the problem as if it's technological problems, but it's not technological problems. It's a moral problems. Sustainability is a moral problem. Somebody gets greedy along the way. Somebody gets irresponsible along the way. But the problem with moral problem is then you talk about values. The moment you talk about values, okay, from which holy book you derive your values from, then how can we agree? But it's not all doom and gloom, right? We used to be able to agree with this across all different faiths. There's a universal declaration of human rights. There's universal declaration of many things. But my point is that let's frame it not only technological challenge, but call it as it is, a values problem, a moral problem. But let's agree on some sort of moral consensus. That is the problem, if we cannot engage the public in a discussion of a moral standards and moral consensus, everything becomes technological problem with technological solution. Guess what? There's no something, you pour in more money and technology on it, you just concentrate the power to the hands of the fewer and fewer people. That is my humble view. And I think that's why more discussions like this on values-based and even reaching across the aisle is very important. And at the end of the day, right, the question is becoming this: what is the quality of our faith truly when we live towards the end of times here, if you believe all the signs, right? What are we truly tested on? What do we truly value? In the absence of clear, tangible, clear line towards impact, what is our hope look like? I think that's something that we need to answer on each of us. Can we still appear joyful and hopeful out there to be an example and reach out to different people, right? But the thing is, it puts me to dark mental places at some part, Ashley, to be honest with you, until I'm reminded again, right? This is the macro picture. It's pretty gloomy, the macro picture, right? But then I'm reminded again, that's why Jesus came and he died on a cross and he won already. He already settled it. So the super macro reality that sometimes we didn't know, it's already done, sealed. Now we just need to live in between stage here in the macro reality. So even if the macro goes bad before it gets better, the super macro reality is done. We all already redeemed. Somebody paid fully, past, present, and future of our sins, right? So that should change our outlook on hope and joy. And another source of satisfaction for me is really the personal interaction with all the individuals at work, personally with partners, with many people when we talk and we share love with one another. That should be the source of our joy. But let not be the source of our joy on, can we suddenly turn Singapore, Indonesia, Europe, everything to be selfless and sustainable and can limit themselves and have utter self-control. The greedy people repent and suddenly not greedy anymore. That's a little bit tough lah, if we try to put our joy and happiness based on that kind of results. So I hope the super macro and the micro, the personal interaction, can be the source of our joy. Yeah.
Going to that idea of micro and that sort of what we can do as individuals, I have a question on this to you, Tommy. Not all of us have or will have the calling to be green entrepreneurs or to work for a company that directly addresses that issue by offering green products and services. So here's a question with two parts to it. The first part is, what do you think we can do, Tommy, as individuals, as everyday consumers? And the second part, what can we do as individuals in the marketplace, in our companies and in our workplace, to be a good stewards of our environment and to support the sustainability cause?
Yeah, very fair and very practical questions. I like it a lot. But allow me though to answer it a little bit on a philosophical basis. I think each of us should go back and prayerfully ask, what is the definition of good life? What is enough is enough? What is the true source of happiness? Is it relationships? Is it the toys we buy? How much toys is enough? We just ask God again, if we truly want to be fully satisfied, spiritually, emotionally, physically, what does it look like? And bring that balance. I think if each of us really seriously look for it, prayerfully, and live as a community, that's one. And two, we also let's practice to look down, not always look up. Look at we're already top 1%, but I want to be top 0.1% and then 0.01%. You know, that creates so much unsatisfaction and everything. But if we always look down, we will find ourselves to be flooded with gratefulness. We will find ourselves to really want to contribute to the lives of all these people. And apparently we'll be happier also. All the while. So that black hole that we keep feeding about ourselves that will never be satisfied and only grow bigger, actually gone. The moment we try to recalibrate it, what does it mean to be this new creation? If it's 2 Corinthians 5:17, right? What does it exactly mean this new creation is? And yeah, what that often means is that, we can actually muster enough strength to do more exercise, eat healthier, buy less toys, but connect more with people, give more. All those things will naturally regulate itself. I think, I hope that is useful. That's what I try to do, is that I ask, what does pursuing shallow means because I want that. And I know more of this strictly material stuff is just a game that is like a hamster in a wheel. We will always working but never arriving. So it's probably not necessarily what I want. I don't want to be seduced by that. But what is the truly satisfying water of life and the bread of life? That's probably worthwhile to ponder.
Thanks, Tommy. So I think we have to look deeper within, and that answer can be different for each one of us. And it's up to us to have a relationship with God to really understand each of our individual purposes in our mandates. Question from Bernice Tay, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. Because I think it's quite a succinct question here. She's asking about supply chain. So she's asking, how feasible do you think we are to having truly green value chains? Some eco-friendly products require a lot of energy and water to produce, that the gains from sustainability are netted out. And then you have some also, at the same time, you have criticisms of solar panels, which are being made from non-sustainable materials, which is ironic. So how close are we to having really green value chains? Someone like you who's on the ground, I can see this with front row seats. How close are we?
Yeah, I can't speak for the area of other technologies that I'm not too familiar with, but I think anytime we move towards renewable, anytime we move towards regional, local, semi-local, regional, I think we can break a lot of the unnecessary carbon footprint that is started, right? So those are some of the stuff that can truly be good. Yes, compared to some of the industrial items, like a byproduct of oil and gas production, since we're extracting oil anyways, this will always be this black goo that we turn into polymer. That is part of the benefits, to be honest with you, to the society, to have that polymer. But we do know that that extraction itself is one, it won't be there forever, and during this extraction is really emitting all these GHG. So we need to think about how to start the drawdown back and to really move towards renewable, semi-local, community-based. Look, even me saying this cringe a little bit, because there's the industrialist in me that always subscale, non-scale. There's always that, right? But you'll be surprised. Actually, it's possible with the technology. It's possible. I'm confident. But the key is to really diligently study and not being lazy about it, because a lot of times the green solution should be as simple as possible, but not simplistic, to the point that you create upstream intervention, apparently creates problem downstream, right? Or you create downstream intervention, but the upstream doesn't get fixed. So knowing the supply chain and have the highest point of leverage to start with is good. And two, how I think about the business model is I try to benchmark it against the status quo to start with. If we can secure enough minimum incremental gains, I take that. Rather than, okay, I want to be holistic and I want to be all the way there to idealist, but never move, right? And take so long. We're a creature of habit. As we start that habit, we start the momentum, we test it, we revise it and everything. The key is build the momentum and the mindset. And I'm sure all the brilliant minds in this room will be able to create more and more solutions that eventually will bring us forward significantly. Capture the gain, even though incremental, no worries, but baseline it.
Thanks, Tommy. And folks, keep the questions coming. As you can see, Tommy does not shy away from tough questions. So the tougher they are, the better the answer sometimes. Perhaps we can maybe another question from my end on, we see with social media and the new generation of millennials demanding change. The balance of power today has shifted, where consumer voices, NGOs, civil society, they're stronger than ever, as compared to the past where corporates and big oil and Wall Street had a lot more unopposed power. So as someone, Tommy, who has worked across, the private, the public, the NGO sector, you've worked across big business, small business, government alike. Where do you see the levers for change today? Where do you see the so-called, as you said, the hope, and the idea that today we are shareholders, stakeholders, excuse me, not shareholders?
Yeah, a very good question. When we talk about environmental, social, and governance, when we talk about climate care, we talk about creation care, we talk about systemic issues, right? Actually, when we talk about systemic issues, by definition, we really need to reach out across the aisle. It's by definition. So what that means is that as companies, we need to develop awareness that, look, my traditional method of just make and sell is not going to cut it anymore. I need to know how to tell good stories to the government. I need to know how to tell good stories to the young people. Right? I need to know it doesn't mean that you really need to develop all those skills in-house. It just means that you need to acknowledge that the kind of skills required to operate in this era of systemic failure, and also a lot of the stuff are interconnected. Even the cross-border sales with online selling is crazy, right? The cross-border sales breaks so many international trade common rules, because now people can sell. I can buy individual stuff from China now using one of the platforms, for instance. That is wow. But what that means is, to secure that kind, you need to have agility, versatility, and collaboration, able to connect with the government, with the young people, with the NGO and everything. That is, I think it's a given. If we want to survive in this era of, what do they call it, fourth industrial revolution and so forth, it's a given. We need to be able to be versatile in working across the aisle. And that's actually making it more meaningful, because it will enhance our mutual understanding and each other's position through the dialogues and everything. Gone are the days where, okay, we want to do vertically integrated all within ourselves. And yeah, certain really, really big groups can still do that. But generally, they will be beaten in terms of speed to market, in terms of innovations. So what do? Well, they create corporate ventures, right? Arms to really invest and make sure they don't lose time. But what that means is, again, era of collaboration. Then they need to compromise their corporate culture with this startup culture and stuff. So we need to be agile on it.
So a multi-stakeholder approach is absolutely critical today. You can't shy away from that, and it takes a village. So I guess that's encouraging that whatever space we're in, whether it's government, private, public, entrepreneur, or none of the above, we should definitely understand how every single industry interacts, where are the points of interaction, and where we can scale up. I'm going to combine two questions here, which are specific to Green Hope. I think folks here are very curious about your business model. It's from Jackson Yao, as well as an anonymous attendee. Question is, have you linked up with Tetra Pak or other packaging companies? And are you supplying NTUC in Singapore?
Wow, that's very, very specific stuff. NTUC, not directly. Whether some of our partners are supplying to them, I don't know, but not directly. Right now, I do know that. I know my list of direct customers. Two is that with regards to Tetra Pak is a multi-layer, multi-materials. There's a paper in there, there's aluminum foil in there, and there's a plastic in there. So it's a little bit complex product that we are not in discussions with them currently. It's not easy to have a multi-material like that. Right now, we're tackling a problem. The biggest. So of the 400 million tons, right, 400 million tons annually, about 40% is packaging. And the packaging, some of the biggest problem in the packaging even is multi-layer plastics. Two different types of plastic slapped together. Why they need two different types of plastic slapped together? Because the outer needs to be for printed, the inner needs to be sealing layer. And that actually causes recycling problems, cannot be recycled. Not to mention if the packaging is too small, noodle packaging or whatever, snack packaging, already contaminated with the oil, the sauce, the powder. That makes it not efficient, not resource to do recycling on that solutions. So that is the kind of biodegradable project that we're doing with a lot of the big Indonesian brands. So part of our business is on the packaging, part of our business on the consumer items, so to speak, for instance, like shopping bags, seedling bags, even we send the containers of bioplastics resins, EcoPlus, to be turned into gloves in Europe. So that is the kind of part, but we need to choose which vertical that is actually promising such that we can change it for the better. We also need to prioritize properly. We cannot be everywhere but nowhere. We need to choose which are the vertical. But having these core competence and technology actually makes the business very extensible to any direction. But that creates problem and opportunities. I often joke that me and Pak Sugi fight all the time because he's so innovative. I said that he creates 10 new products every day. I try to kill 7 and make money off the 3. Otherwise, we won't be sustainable ourselves. We keep just inventing new stuff, right? At the applications level. Yeah.
Thanks, Tommy. Now, switching around to keep things interesting to the science of this business. 2 questions from the floor, one from Anthony Ng and one from Anonymous. Anthony is asking, what are your views on using low-cost pyrolysis combustion, which I think is basically burning, in reducing garbage waste instead of incineration or landfills? And the second question from another person is from Jackson, I think. Excuse me. It's what there's this new science about bacteria that can learn to eat and break down plastics. Excuse me. What are your views on that?
Okay. Strictly just honest view that are still learning. Any of the solution we need to balance between many things. One is the climate impact, the GHG, right? How much carbon footprint and everything. 2 is the plastic waste pollution. Pyrolysis or burning, combustion and everything can get rid of the plastic pollution, no doubt about it. And some of the big scale can really get rid of it. But the GHG part needs to be really thought of. And also another part is sometimes the same technology, when you move it to, for instance, it works very well in very dry, arid climate like in Europe. But the moment you move it to Indonesia, very high humidity, very high water, so much water in the air, and also our waste is wet and not really separated and everything, then it becomes net energy negative when you try to burn it. This is an example of sometimes half-truth, right? Does it create electricity? Yes, it will create electricity, but people don't say how much electricity it actually needs. Then actually it will need electricity. It's okay, so long that, for instance, we still need to do it anyways, like Singapore, do incineration and everything. Yeah, because the land value and the opportunity cost of the land is very high, right? Every new land, you need to do it for residential or commercial and everything. You can't have landfills, big landfills in Singapore. It just doesn't make sense. So even though it's burning, yeah, it contributive to the climate change, but that's where we're stuck between the rock and a hard places. We need to pick our battle, and we need to get rid of all these items too. So that is the thinking that needs to go, the careful thinking that needs to go to it. So the key is be careful with some of the very rudimentary technologies. If it's very simple pyrolysis, combustion, if the smoke is dark and you let it like that, it's really, really tough for the environment, and it's really, really bad. Not only GHG, but we're talking about toxic dioxin and so forth. That is probably needs to be thought of properly. Yeah. What's the other questions? Ashley, am I missing something?
Low cost pyrolysis and bacteria. What are 2 questions?
Oh, the bacteria, yeah, bacteria. I don't know enough which bacteria, but in general, I don't know if you all know that the Mother Earth is able to oxidize and then biodegrades plastic, but it just needs 100 years. It needs 50 years. Why does the Mother Earth is able to do that? For this very simple fact that plastic comes from oil. So at the most basic molecular component level is a hydrocarbon chain. If we recall our chemistry class during high school, C, H, and O. You arrange it differently, repeat it 7 million times, it becomes polypropylene. Rearrange it differently, becomes polyethylene, right? And stuff like that. So that long carbon chain needs to be cut off first until shorter and shorter, such that it becomes similar with regular food. Then the fungi and microbes and everything can eat it. Now, I assume in this case is people are asking, look, that cutting of the chain, that oxidation process, if there's a bacteria that don't care about that process, don't need to wait for that process before they attack it. If it attacks it directly, what is my view? My view is, yeah, I can get rid of the plastics, but my immediate question is, are we going to be turning into science fiction? How do we control that, right? How do we make sure that it only eats the plastic we want it to eat? And if there's a bacterial leakage, it will eat everything around me. And so that's kind of like the science fiction horror that sometimes I have. If we deal with bacteria, microbes that we're not sure how to control it. Best way I thought is just help nature speed up the natural process if possible, but breeding the special bacteria and everything, let's make sure we can actually manage it, not to be leaking and eating our buildings and because everything's got plastic, you see, all our clothing and everything too.
So it sounds like different technologies are different stages of incubation, and it sounds like plastic, as Jackson, you've said, it's very much still at the talk stage rather than hard science. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions before we close. So please, I think we've answered most of the questions in the Q&A. Please send in your last few questions. Perhaps one from me, Tommy, about your faith. Put it simply, how has the Lord factored in the way you do business, in your business? If you can give practical examples of, how do you think you've taken decisions in your work, business decisions, or the way you've dealt with people that has been shaped by your faith? And perhaps if you did not have that faith, you might have reacted or acted differently.
Yeah. First of all, I did go through that faith journey and doubts, right? All of us did, up and downs. And I ask God for signs, I pray, I exercise faith. And there are one undeniable reality that if I look back the journey of Green Hope and to where we are right now, we're entering an exciting new stage now that a lot of doors open and stuff like that. But the past 5 years, there are many instances where I'm like, should we continue, God? Should we continue, right? But he maintained, he gave us the daily manna. And I think having that time alone with him and see how he rescued, how he picked, how he gave us, when we lost customer, gave us bigger customers and stuff like that is very encouraging me. That, yeah, at the end of the day, this is his business. I'm just maintaining his. Even in Green Hope, our company PT is called PT Harapan Interaksi Swadaya. Harapan means hope, interaksi, interact, swadaya. But the interesting part is when you do the acronym, it's his. So it's just to remind me that everything belongs to him. It's his. We have subsidiaries on different verticals. Some of subsidiary is Harapan Infinity Mulia. If you acronym, the acronym is him. So it's always reminding me that, hey, I've got not necessarily much to lose here. And I've got everything to gain, to join him in his calling. That is something that I think different, encouraged me in a different way. Second is to really have responsibility with our team. To be honest, choosing manufacturing, yeah, technology manufacturing, but still manufacturing is one of the hardest routes to be in Indonesia. It's easier to just be importer. It's easier to really just play with technology, digital tech, work with the smartest in urban. But manufacturing and dealing with people in manufacturing, dealing with farmers, all those things really need, I pray that God gives me the heart to really do it as a mission. And reaching out with people of different faiths is actually exciting. Even in Green Hope, we just finished our past studies, but we're going to start again here soon. We call it Green Hope Fellowship. We actually have fellowship of all people of different faith in Green Hope every Friday, where we have select people of different group from marketing, R&D, operations, and stuff like that. We talk about the Green Hope values, where the values, we fail the values, or where we demonstrate the values. People are sharing. It's a safe place to share, regardless of what their faiths are. I find that very, very exciting to really give room, to really protect everybody, and while unabashedly being Christian with my faith, and they all know they are under Christian leadership, and I hope they can see that I'm a servant leader as opposed to just another leader, even worse, that exploits the people and everything. So that's how we try to do the company, run the company. Yeah.
Thanks, Tommy. And perhaps one of our last few questions. Someone sent to me offline actually. How do you see the church's I think Georgie just posted it. How do you see the church's response on creation care? And is the church doing enough on creation care?
If we talk of church as an institution, yeah, not all of us as a body of believers, it's very hard to be in a church these days. The world is super complicated. I'm having trouble keeping up to date on green developments, technologies, creation care, right? Much less people outside of creation care in business, much less people in church, the spiritual ministers. So I think what our colleagues in church can do is really describe how big and wonderful our God is, how his theology, how his heart encompasses everything, right? I think that's the job of the church, to really dig up the truth from the Bible and communicate that, and not to narrow it down in accordance to a specific calling of the specific pastors or whatever, but really see the Bible as the most broadest, powerful as it is.
Yes.
And then reach out to all the laymen to really work together in terms of the what or the how. But that is the theological underpinning we need, and the spiritual covering and the prayer of the church authorities. I'm yearning for it all the time from my local church. I do need that support and everything too. But I think safe to say that it's so complex, the business world these days. There's no way to expect our pastors to really be able to do deal structure, fundraising, give advice on ethical boundaries or certain things that is so complex, right? That is probably our job as a layman, being equipped from the spiritual side by the church to really interpret what does it mean in the marketplace, right? So working together, but the theology itself, please don't make it narrow. That's the idea. God is so powerful, right? If God doesn't touch this creation care, or in Indonesia, another subject close and dear to me is corruption, for instance, or marketplace. If God doesn't touch that area, that means we only have two conclusions. One is either God doesn't care, or two, God is not strong enough. God only strong within church walls, right? We cannot accept those two conclusions. Does he care? Absolutely. Is he strong enough? Yes. So where's the missing link? Well, maybe it's us, the missing link.
Well said, Tommy. Maybe we are the missing link. Well, thank you so much for your time and wonderful fellowship with us, Tommy. Do you have anything you want that you would like the audience to part away with before we close?
Usually I kind of know, but I think you really ask all stuff from me, coming out of me. I think I just want us to have a genuine, authentic fellowship together and really pursue God to be the best version of God's original design on each of us. And I think if we do that individually and collectively, I believe we can be that city and salt and light. We can be that city on the hill, and we can be that salt. Let's diligently fellowship and pursue that individually and collectively. It's an opportunity to let our faith shine and our God's truth and Jesus Christ to show up. I think that's it's more needed than ever. Yeah, and that is good for us. I always say to people that it's always tough to be in the middle, meaning that, okay, I compromise. I want to be in the middle. I try to have my cake and eat it too. So what happens is that then we are not excited enough with God's agenda and fellowship with God and fellowship with each other. We're not excited about that, but we are not so to speak, carnal enough. We feel guilty when we try to be worldly and carnal. That's a very miserable position to be in, man. Right? It's either you go all the way to the left or all the way to the right. Might as well don't believe at all, rather than half baked and be in the middle. The best way is to really believe all the way with God and try to integrate everything, reinterpret everything, including the reason we go to work every day from His lens. That is the most exciting and joyful. I think that's just a little bit of thoughts. Yeah.
Amen. Well, it's been a joy to fellowship with you, Tommy, and with our 50 to 60 participants. Thank you all for joining us.